Hey everyone, welcome back to CryptoCache. Thank you so much for joining me here. Hope you're having an amazing day. Happy Thursday to you, of course. We're going to take another look at Bitcoin, see what's going on. If you're new to the channel, consider becoming a community member. CryptoCache.tech is a site, link in the description below. I offer a trading academy, community, and signal group. So here is basically where we're at for Bitcoin. It's not looking great, but it's also very interesting. In other words, we have this ascending type of pattern here, right, that wants to break to the upside, but certainly cannot. Yet we have a lot of other bearish indications. So we'll go through all that, of course, and much more, but generally speaking, it's an interesting situation. And of course, with the Jackson Hole meeting taking place from the 25th through the 27th, then we can kind of summarize that will have some effect on this. And with the price action not going above this key level resistance at 21.6, we can pretty much expect the price to, I would say, come down eventually, but potentially increase first. I don't know. It really just depends on how the news folds out, right? So a lot of factors involved. So honestly, the TA over the next few days may not be all that super relevant. And as much as I love this, it doesn't necessarily apply when there's some fundamentals involved, right? So if dollar index goes up, we can expect Bitcoin to kind of take a plunge. But it does look like Bitcoin is trying, and it wants to try to ascend a little higher, at least to retest 22,500. It's kind of what it feels like. Either way, what we're looking at here, of course, on the daily isn't really anything fantastic. There's nothing positive or negative here, honestly. The bearish divergence is starting to relax, and of course we have the RSI kind of getting stuck here right around the 40 range. Now, of course, that's because the key level resistance here, and just generally speaking, there's not much to disseminate from what we see here because we're below all the moving averages. Essentially just a bearish mindset, right? That's kind of the thing you want to try to remember. Another thing to recognize too is this descending type of trend here. Over the next week or so, we'll probably see that tested to either increase above that or to decrease below and effectively reject. So there's a couple of different scenarios that could unfold, of course. I mean, I'm sure there's a heck of a lot more potential scenarios, but it just feels like we're kind of on a razor's edge here, and we might see the price action increase. Because if you kind of look at this here, we can see this ascending type of trend just continuing to form, right? And oftentimes they break to the upside, but in this case here, it oftentimes breaks to the downside. What I mean by that is because it started from the top, so a lot of times it's one of those bear type of flag patterns or pennants, depending on, of course, the shape, pushing the price action down lower. Okay, so again, the likelihood of the price coming down from here, minus this obvious fact that we have an ascending type of trend, is higher. So in other words, we could very well see a bounce up here and then a rejection, dead cat bounce, right? Or we could just see the price continue to progress lower here. It really just depends on the news. It has a lot to do with it. So anytime we've seen this kind of pattern before, it usually continues lower. All right, and if I'm not mistaken, there is a pattern like that, of course, in the daily here. You can kind of see this, whereas the price action came sideways, came down, and of course it's starting to ascend, but the likelihood of it descending from here is pretty high. I mean, you could see very similar trends here happening in the past as well, back when Bitcoin rejected off 48,000 and hasn't even come close ever since, right? So again, just kind of throwing some thoughts out there so this ascending trend is nice, all well and good, but you can only retest an ascending trend for so long, right? It's retesting the bottom line, the actual ascending trend, more than it is the actual resistance level. So again, I would say that a break to the downside seems more sensible, but again, logic doesn't apply in the world of crypto when it comes to fundamental analysis, right? So fundamentals going on right now, just however J-Powell wants to do it, that will essentially determine a lot, okay? But either way you look at it, on the 4-hour time frame, we are still ascending. The price is coming up. We're no longer getting rejected by 50 on the RSI. That looked like a positive sign recently, but the fact that we have this kind of double top, so to speak, or just the price action rejecting pretty hard off that area, tells me that we're definitely not bullish by any stretch, okay? So again, on the 4-hour, we can see that we're getting rejected by the 50-day SMA, but we're over the 20. We're still below the 200, which is trending closer to about 23,000. So again, I would say that a long position would be fairly risky. If you were to use a long position, which I have considered taking a long position recently, just make sure you use a really low position size if you're using leverage, and have a pretty loose stop loss. I know it seems crazy, but you kind of have to in this market, because with these candle wicks up and down 5 to 10% at a time, you're going to get stopped out if you're not careful, and oftentimes it just comes right back around. So again, we're still fairly range bound between 20,700 and 21,700. So until that breaks, we really can kind of expect the price to come back down to retest the lower levels soon. Okay, so that's generally kind of what we're looking at here. 4 hour, I would say slightly bearish in that sense, just based on the fact that we're under key level resistances. And the same can be summarized on the daily. When it comes to the hourly though, when we take a look at the cloud here, you can see we're retesting the upper lead. The lagging span is intersecting with the price action, and of course the conversion line's above the baseline. So really not a tremendous amount of fantastic stuff here, right? While it's nice and well and good that we're above the cloud is working ascending with the actual trend line, we can also expect the price action to potentially reject off of the cloud. But with the other two factors involved, that really just tells you if you have a long position open, you should have closed it by now and taken your profits. Right, so again, a lot of different schools of thought here, but generally speaking, we're not getting like amazing signs here from the cloud, even though we are slightly above. But I don't really trust it right now based on the overall sense, because if you look at the cloud on the other time frames, the 4 hour and or the daily, we're still descending below this trend line, and we're still getting stopped out, so to speak, to the upside. Right, so again, that's kind of what we're looking at there. Last thing we could look at is TD sequential. Really not a lot to extract here. We did come up to a 9 previously, came back down, got a reset up to an 8. So you can see, even though the price action continues to stay at this level, 21,700 and 21,600, the price action is getting rejected again based on the simple fact that it became overextended. So good news is Bitcoin is starting to finally hit 8s and 9s to the upside, but the bad news is we're getting exhausted by the time we hit that level, and we can't break through that resistance because the amount of volume just isn't enough. I mean, we have decent volume so far trading today, but the price is going down, and if I'm not mistaken, the dollar index is kind of drawing dead. In other words, if we look at the daily here, yeah, we kind of have this, well, that's more of a bullish signal right there. Of course, the day is over early, right? The day isn't over, so we want to kind of expect that the dollar index could potentially reject off this level, but you can kind of see here, it's actually hitting a 9 on TD sequential on the daily, so it would make sense for a retracement on the dollar index and for Bitcoin to come up, right? Again, it doesn't always work out that way. Whatever happens the next 24 to 48 hours, or 72 hours rather, is going to essentially determine the initial direction. But what we can expect is for Bitcoin to likely increase first and then decrease from there. Just say the fundamentals were no longer applied, we're a lot more likely to increase for a little bit longer before we decrease, based on the simple fact that this ascending trend is still kind of working. It's still our friend, you could say. But the overall sense is that we're very bearish, and we absolutely have a lot of conflicting information here. So it's one of those things where you just want to kind of be very cautious and careful with what you're doing with your trades right now, because it's more so how you structure your trades that's the benefit right now, versus actually buying low and selling high and just always hitting a specific routine. You got to adjust, and what we do in this environment is we use low position sizing. We'll have a very loose stop loss and or trailing stop loss, and make sure that we take our profits whenever we can. And the great thing is we use trading bots, and those really help us kind of secure those profits at specific profit targets. So again, all the more reason for you to kind of take a look and consider becoming a community member if you haven't already. CryptoCache.tech is a site. Link in the description below. So honestly, that is really everything I have here for you today. Not much else we can really kind of expect here from Bitcoin. It's just doing standard Bitcoin stuff, which is interesting nonetheless. So I hope this found benefit for you. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for your time. We'll see you in the next one. Take care. Thank you.